no,
none
it
of
does.
the lines.
Yeah, that looks a lot better than it did last time.
Is everything good, Mayor? Everything good with you?
Was that good?
Everything good with you?
Hasn't paved over that portion of his parking lot that we said he could go ahead and pave over. You know, right
I don't know.
on the shoulder. It was the,
I gotta be honest with you, I've been avoiding him.
Well,
it's always an issue.
I've talked to him, but I was waiting to see if what they did helped or didn't help, and then gonna let him know, go ahead and do that. So I kinda wanted to give it,
Oh,
that was me dragging my feet on that. I wanted to see if
No,
if
that's
what we
okay.
did help.
Gotcha. Okay. On my drive-by, I looked.
Yeah,
Accepted.
I will follow up though, but
Okay.
I wanted to see.
I'm surprised we haven't heard from him.
Maybe it's working.
Are we live, Mr. Smith? We are live, terrific. Wonderful. So the hour being 7:02 PM on Monday, November 14th, 2022. I'd like to call to order the City of Laconia City Council meeting for the evening. Before we go any farther, though, I'd like to request that we say the Pledge of Allegiance, and hoping that Councilor Cheney would lead us.
It's a new committee.
Up, down, up, down.
It's a new committee.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Councilor Cheney. We're joined this evening by Katie Gargano, who is our recording secretary, and city clerk. I'd ask her to please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Here.
Counselor Susie,
Here.
Counselor Haynes,
Here.
Counselor Felch,
Here.
Mayor Hosmer.
Present. We have a quorum present. Also joined at council table this evening is City Manager Kirk Beatty, our Finance Director, Glenn. We do have on agenda item 6, we have a proclamation. Not sure if there's anyone here from Laconia small business community that probably tending to their store. So certainly we wanted to briefly recognize that I believe it's Saturday, November 26, 2022, is Small Business Saturday in the city of Laconia. Whereas the government of Laconia, New Hampshire celebrates our local small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economy and community. And also recognizing that our local businesses create jobs, boost our local economy, and preserve our communities, as well as advocacy groups, as well as public and private organizations across the country that have endorsed the Saturday after Thanksgiving as Small Business Saturday. I, Andrew Hosmer, Mayor of the City of Laconia, New Hampshire, do hereby proclaim November 26, 2022, as Small Business Saturday here in the City of Laconia, and urge the residents of our community and communities across the country, if anybody's listening, to support small businesses and merchants on Small Business Saturday throughout the year. So that is our proclamation for small business, encouraging everybody on the Saturday after Thanksgiving to shop locally and support all of those in the community that support us. Item number 7 on our agenda is acceptance of minutes. The minutes of the regular meeting of October 24th, 2022 were distributed to the City Council on November 9th, 2022. With no corrections or changes submitted to the clerk, the minutes will be accepted as distributed. Item number 8 on our agenda. 8A is a request from the Weirs Action Committee to use Endicott Rock parking lot for Laconia Motorcycle Week parking from June 10th, 2023 through June 18th, 2023, and to waive all special event fees in connection with the requested use. This is a yearly request from the Weirs Action Committee, and it supports some of the great work that they've done throughout Weirs over the years. The Action Committee has requested the use of Endicott Rock parking lot for Laconia Motorcycle Week from June 10th, 2023 through June 18th, 2023 from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. City Council approval is being requested because this fundraising event is anticipating revenues above $2,000. The Weirs Action Committee is also requesting that all special event fees in connection with the event be waived. So right now, I'll be looking for a motion to move to approve this request by the Weirs Action Committee to use Endicott Rock parking lot for Laconia Motorcycle Week parking from June 10th, 2023 through June 18th, 2023, and to waive all special event fees in connection with the requested use. So made by Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Felch. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 4 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Moving on to item number 9, which is citizens' comments for matters not on the agenda. If anyone is joining us here to speak to a matter that's not on the agenda, now would be the appropriate time.
Mr. Mayor, councilors, I'm Patrick Wood. I have 3 things that I want to just mention. First of all, tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, the National Honor Society of Laconia High School is putting on a women's football game. The proceeds are going to be benefiting Gilda's Club, but it's at 6 o'clock, and I'll be more than happy to buy your tickets. They're $5 a piece if you want to be there. It's going to be a great event. I think that it's going to be the freshmen against the juniors and the sophomores and seniors, or the freshmen and juniors against the sophomore and seniors. Women's football, flag football should be a lot of fun. The second thing is I wanted to thank the city for the support for the Max Gagnon Parade on Saturday. It was very well attended, and it was a great event, and thank you for allowing that to happen. The third thing is just a reminder that on the Sunday after Thanksgiving, and I'm sure you'll hear more about that, there's the parade, the holiday parade. So that's going to be a big event. Celebrate Laconia is going to be putting that on, and it's going to be exciting. I know that I've talked to Councilor Felch about Elm Street, some of the issues, and I know that that's going to be coming up at the Safety Committee, Subcommittee meeting, but one of the things that I would suggest is that perhaps we look into those pedestrian lights like we have on Union Avenue by Canton's and on South Main Street by the Vista, and put those by the park, the Levitt Park, and by the Elm Street School, and also Wyatt Park, so you can get across Main Street down at Wyatt Park. And that I just heard from Steve this evening. The final thing I want to say is I think we're going to be well represented in Concord. I know 3 of these elected officials fairly well. One I've worked with on a lot of different events. The 4th I don't know as well, but I'm going to get to know him better. So I think we're going to be well represented, and I'm very, very proud of the city for doing the great job. It was a wonderful election. A lot of people turned out, and so I think it's very good. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Patrick.
Excuse me, do you think you need to explain a little bit about Gilda's Club? If people are listening.
Well, Gilda's Club? I mean,
Yes.
okay. I'm sorry. My wife is reminding me of Gilda's Club. It's a community, it's a cancer support community. And the proceeds will be used to support the efforts of that organization, which is doing its best to make sure that people who are suffering from cancer or their families have an opportunity for a respite, an opportunity to meet, to take walks, book club, perhaps just think about something other than what they're going through. So it's a great organization, and again, I would invite you to come to the football game, and I'll be there and make sure your tickets are taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Hi, Stephen. Welcome.
Hello.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm your new state rep-elect for Laconia District 5, and I took the opportunity to introduce myself to the city manager already and give him my contact information. And I would like to offer up any services that I might be able to help with this city, as I am a resident here, and it is truly my heart and soul has been spent 20 years here in the city. So that's all I wanted to do is to introduce myself and offer up my services.
Stephen,
Okay?
thanks very much for coming. Thanks very much for running. And I certainly, all of us, I suppose, had an opportunity to watch you campaign and listen to you speak. And I was very encouraged when you spoke that, and I thought to myself, you'd be a terrific representative from this city. So I'm pleased to see that you were elected. And I want to make sure that you know you are always welcome to come and give us an update whenever you see fit as to what's going on, or if you're looking for any input. We wish to have an open dialogue with our representatives so we can sort of share ideas and you can maybe gain the perspective that we might have on an issue, and certainly we can gain your insight as well. I think it's critical to a well-functioning city government, but also state government as well, that you know where we stand on some things. So thanks very much for coming.
That was in my plan already to share everything that was going to be going on as far as any legislation and stuff. I think it's very important that the city gets more than 24 hours notice of something that's going to happen one way or the other. I like to give the all the time I can that I'm allotted to myself and share that and take input from the city, because you guys know best how the direction you wish to go from, and I would like to be able to carry that forward and with that information. So that's why I'm here, to offer up that support any way I can. Okay?
Thanks, Ken. Anthony?
Hi,
Hi.
how's everybody tonight?
Really well. How are you tonight? more
Doing well.
importantly? Good.
Past my bedtime, but I got some ideas to put a sign down at the Weirs intersection under the sign
Yes.
and have it open all year round. We've been open for 5 years now. I want to keep the sign on, and a few other ideas. I made a little list, and I'd like to give it to you guys and look at it anytime. And let me know what you think.
You put a like a yard sign there
Yeah,
sometimes, don't
somebody
you?
stole
Oh, really? Okay. Wes?
But he said he's-
He rolled over easily,
I got to
didn't
go
he?
back. He did. We already talked about it.
All right, well,
That's why I did
let's
this,
have a
you know?
discussion. I think it's really important that people remember that some places on the boulevard are open all year. That you were doing, we had to put some trust in you, that you would live up to expectations and what we had hoped would happen. And I must say, I think you did all the way around.
Thank you very much.
So, I think that's really appreciated and certainly encourages us to continue to support you in any way that we can.
Thanks for your trust.
That makes good
Appreciate it.
sense, yeah, but you fulfilled it, so really appreciate it. Nice job.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello, hi everyone. I just want to come and introduce myself. My name is Corey Tessier. I am the owner of Legacy Home Group. My partner Kara and I just purchased the Sawyer's Jewelry Building downtown and renovated it. So I just wanted to introduce myself and say how excited we are to be part of our downtown Main Street. So speaking of the parade coming up next Sunday, we are going to be opening our doors. We're having a little bit of a Santa's workshop in there, so we'll invite all of the kids to come in, have a little warming up spot. And we are going to be benefiting a local nonprofit called the Pass Along Project, which helps our New Hampshire children that are put into emergency foster care. So we're just really excited to be here. Our doors are open, so I wanted to let everyone know that we're here to help serve our community. So thank you for having me.
Corey, thanks very much for coming and introducing yourself tonight. It's been so impressive to see what you and Kara and your whole team have done with the Sawyer's Building there, and I had an opportunity to go there in your grand opening. It's really remarkable space, but I think more importantly is the energy that you and your team bring to what's going on in the city and your willingness to participate. It's people like you, it's businesses like you that make this a really special community. So welcome, it's great to have you here. I'm glad you're putting roots down on Main Street.
Awesome, thank you very much.
You bet. Anybody else? Oh, okay. All right. Thanks, everyone. Let's see. We're moving right along on our agenda here. Public hearings under 13A. Public hearing request from Weirs Beach Pedal Boats to run a pedal boat business using the city docks and space on the boardwalk in Weirs Beach. Notice of this public hearing was made available in the October 24th, 2022 edition of the Laconia Daily Sun and posted at Laconia City Hall, Laconia Community Center, Laconia Public Library, and the offices of the SAU. Action on this item may be taken up later on this evening under unfinished business. I'd like to open the public hearing at 7:16 PM. And anyone who would like to speak to this matter, we don't have anyone virtual tonight, but now would be the, bless you, now would be the appropriate time to step forward and speak to it. Come on up, Anthony, I see you leaning. You're leaning into it.
I know Chuck and Diane, they're great. Their business is the Maple Moose, and they moved in behind me. They've been great the whole time they've been there. And I think it's a great idea. I think the back part of the dock is not used, and I think that'd be a perfect spot for those guys to put their boats. It'd be really cool. That's really what I got to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else would like to speak right now? During the unfinished business portion, if we take this up again, there's not an opportunity for the public to speak. So now would be the appropriate time if you want to come up and say something just before this closes. I encourage you to do so now.
Again,
Otherwise, you never know which direction the conversation could take off in.
That's right. Patrick Wood, I know at the last meeting, there was a discussion about them meeting with the Weirs Action Committee. Do we know whether that took place?
Come on up.
Hi, I'm Charles Carey.
Hi, Charles. Good to see you.
Good to see you. The Weirs Action Committee actually sent out an email to all the members and about the whole public hearing. So we sent an email back to all the members also explaining the whole situation of what we wanted to do and to look over the packet that they saw, you know. And if they had any questions to talk to us, and we'd explain it more to them if they had any concerns or if they wanted to show up here and ask us questions or concerns. And nobody replied, so I didn't know if there was an issue or not an issue, so.
Would you be open to a question right
No,
now?
yes.
One question I had in looking at the diagram that I think you submitted, but I've looked at it a
Yeah.
couple times now, in the area where you propose the boats being used, and it's outlined in green
Yep.
on this document here. Is this area going to be cordoned off with a swim line of any sort?
No,
It's not.
no.
And the reason I ask,
We'd have to get authority through the, I think, Marine Patrol to do anything like that.
and the only reason I ask is, there has been some feedback, and I think we've all probably gotten an email from, there's some concern with the Mount Washington.
Yep.
And I think it's legitimate concern to the extent that if a pedal boat were to end up in front of one of the boats, the Mount Washington, for instance, how difficult it would be to slow down and avoid contact of any sort. So just a safety issue. And from this, it looks like there's some distance between where the boats would be used, the pedal boats, and the Mount Washington.
Yes, they would stay more over towards the channel in front of the swim area.
So the only,
When the
yeah.
Mount Washington comes out, it kind of just backs up a little and then it goes that way. So,
Right.
For these boats to actually get all the way over by the marina area, it's gonna take them quite a while to get there. So they don't have that much time to even get there and really back. So,
I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity of some sort to put a line to demarcate the
We-
area that they should not be on the other side of.
we could, but then we're taking up more dock area then, if we do that, I think.
I just see it potentially in the water as a marker.
Oh, I know what you're saying.
as
Oh, just
some
markers
sort.
to try to tell them to stay where they are.
Yeah, and then it would be incumbent upon you or your employees
Yeah,
to keep an eye on those boats as they get to that area.
gotcha. Yep.
And to get out there and to sort of intervene if necessary to sort of push them back into the area.
Yep.
Just to alleviate the concern of the Mount Washington. That's
I
my
understand.
only concern here.
Yep. We've definitely thought about concerns about the Mount Washington.
So I guess you
But
don't
I'll-
have to answer
right.
definitively that, but would you be open to a further discussion about marking an area
Oh, yes,
if
definitely.
possible?
Yes.
Just for safety reasons and to make sure that those of the Mount Washington
Sure.
are comfortable with the safety
Yes.
measures being taken?
Yep.
Okay. Do you have a question?
I did, if I might, Mr. Mayor. We've met before and discussed this project, I'm
Yep.
sure you remember on the docks. And having reviewed the message that I think all of us received from the Mount, I began to be concerned, as the mayor has suggested, that that could be a real problem. When you and I talked the first time, you and I and the
Yeah.
previous city manager, you talked about having a boat there to help,
Yes.
go out and help people to bring them back in. But I got the impression that it wasn't gonna be much of a, boat to,
It would be either a little jet ski or one of those little, jet boats.
Yeah.
Like the 2, 3-seaters, whatever they are. Just something quick that can run right out there quick and.
it would seem to me, if you could commit, if we end up with problems putting a line out there, and I suspect that may happen with Marine Patrol, if you could commit to having your boat out there in that area
Okay.
during those times when the Mount is coming in,
Yep.
to just shepherd them away. You see it come around the corner by
Oh, I know what you're saying.
Governor's Island, and you shepherd them all back.
Yep.
But I'd look for some commitment on your part to the manager in
Absolutely.
some written form.
And we actually thought about too, the times that they come in and come back. We'd try to
Pause.
line up our work, to like stop sending them out at those times, you know.
The Mount Washington is our favorite thing in the whole city. The reason why we're here, basically, we come here every year for our anniversary to go on it, so we certainly don't want to have any sort of negative impact on the Mount Washington, and we will happily work with them.
As I said, I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but if you would think about that and perhaps talk with the manager about some commitment that we can count on. It's easy for you to, and I don't mean to suggest otherwise, but it's easy to sit there and say, oh yeah, we'll do it, and then forget about it. And I'd like to see it in some form where we
Well,
know that's gonna happen.
What we could do is, every day when we open up, I could take the little boat over there and park it at the corner, the furthest end of the corner of the docks. So when I know that boat's coming back, that boat's already way out there already, I can just jump in it and just drive across if there is a potential problem, you know?
Well, we can also contact Marine Patrol too, and to see if they would in fact let us go ahead and put.
Put barrier up, yeah. At least markers anyways, nothing that's gonna be in the way of anybody, but,
You finished?
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman.
absolutely. So I want you to understand, I think there is an inclination here on the council, and certainly with me, to support you in this business, in this endeavor. I think it's terrific. On the other hand, we're trying to balance the equities of like the Mount Washington being there, and they have safety concerns. So, and I think probably what the Councilor Cheney was alluding to,
he wants something written that we're gonna be out there at those times.
A commitment.
I have no
yeah,
problem with that.
just sort of a commitment that we can rely on, and that may just be having an open and regular dialogue with people at the Mount Washington on a daily basis. So what their routes are, when they're coming in and out, they just need to have that comfort that your business is being run responsibly. They don't know you, and that's the only reason I might use that word. And also from our perspective, if the first year goes really, really well, then that bodes well for a second and third year and continuing on. If it doesn't go so well for whatever reason, then that puts everybody in a sort of a more difficult, more challenging position, and I don't want to be in that position, neither do you. And
No.
so we're just trying to find a way to hopefully get you to yes.
Yes. I think the definite good way is to, the times that they go out, is we would pause sending the boats out. And they're out for, 2.5 hours, I think, at a time.
We would just have to work with them with the schedule.
We would work with the
would make a
schedule, yeah.
commitment with that,
Yeah,
to say that.
yes, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
Okay, so if you're open to that, that probably satisfies a couple of questions we might have when we get to this later on, okay?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry, did anybody else have any questions?
fine.
Anyone else here who'd like, we are, I see the superintendent here, I didn't know if you wanted to speak. We're on agenda item number 9, which is comments for matters not on the agenda. You may have something on the agenda, so, okay. All good?
The public hearing is still open.
We certainly are. Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, you're on a public hearing. I go forward, back and forth. I move around. You gotta stay with me, Jane. I'm nimble.
Another question.
If there are no other comments right now on the public hearing 13A, I'd like to close it at 7:26 PM. Might be one of the longest public hearings we've had here on a matter quite some time. Item number 13B. Public hearing for Resolution 2022-14, approval of bonding for the purpose of purchasing solid waste and recycling containers. Notice of this public hearing was made available in the October 24th, 2022 edition of Laconia Daily Sun, posted at Laconia City Hall, Laconia Community Center, Laconia Public Library, and the offices of the SAU. I'd like to open the public hearing at 7:27 PM, and if you would like to speak to this matter, now would be the appropriate time. All right. I have this thing, I can't open a public hearing the same minute and close it in the same minute. So we're at 7:27:31 right now, so I'm just gonna wait it out to 7:28. I close the public hearing at 7:28 PM on that matter. Moving along to presentations, the mayor's report. I'll keep this, I think, hopefully brief. But certainly, as we all know, November 8th, we had elections here. I want to say thank you to Katie and your team. And from all appearances and all feedback I've received, it was not only very busy, but remarkably smooth in all of the wards. So a credit to you and the training you've done and your team, certainly. And particularly, we were in a bind a month or so ago with not enough workers. So great job in getting them and finding people to come and work. It's a long day. There's a lot of public scrutiny, significant responsibility, but it's instrumental in preserving democracy in this small city in central New Hampshire. So thank you very much, and please let everyone on your team throughout the city know how much we appreciate it.
I certainly will. Thank you.
Representative Leck Bogert spoke earlier, and this was the second piece of my comments tonight. Congratulations to everyone that ran. Everybody who's run for an office knows what it takes to throw up your hand and say you're going to run. Sometimes that's easy. Fulfilling that desire to run and going through with a campaign is hard, win or lose. So thank you for being willing to run. And as we move forward, we look forward to having an open dialogue with all of you who've been elected. And it really is so important that our senator and our local reps know the impact their votes have on us here in municipalities, whether it come to education funding, rooms and meal tax, downshifting of some expenses that was started a long time ago and continues on today. It impacts us here as we build a budget here and try to build a responsible budget that is respectful of taxpayer obligations and as well as our obligations to the public services in this city. It's a balancing act for all of you in Concord. It's certainly a balancing act here at the city level. So congratulations and thank you for your efforts. Congratulations to Dave Hewitt, Steve Bogert, Charlie St. Clair, Mike Boards. Also congratulations to our school board members, Karen Salome, who is new to the school board from Ward 3, and Laura Dunn, who was reelected to Ward 2. Certainly thank you and good luck in this year, and certainly this is you're always welcome here to share with your thoughts, so thanks. That's all I have as far as my mayor's report this evening. I will look to my left and right for council comments tonight.
Can go.
What?
Councilor Cheney.
Oh, all right, go right ahead. You never disappoint.
I was hoping I could ask some questions tonight. I wondered if we could get a report on the status of the Cottonwood Avenue cul-de-sac that we were trying to hammer out here months ago, and I wonder if at the next meeting, perhaps the city manager could give us an update on the status. Could I get a report on the status of the solar field in the Weirs in Councilor Felch's ward? We did a lot of stuff a year or two ago, and now I hear nothing, and I was hoping maybe we could get a report on how that's progressing, particularly given how expensive electricity is. If the city and the schools could get a better rate for electricity, that would be, I think, it would be a great boon for the city.
Spring? Okay.
The last item, at least for the moment, and I hope perhaps the city engineer could help us. I've had a call with regards to Hadley Road, and particularly the maintenance of it, which the folks that live there, there's one or two families, are under the impression that they're not going to have plowing or any maintenance this winter. So I was kind of hoping we could find out, whether we find out tonight or at the next meeting, could we get a report on, A, report on Hadley Road, and B, a discussion about making sure those families have service until such time as we can accept or reject their road.
Wes, would you like to address that? Can you address that right now on Hadley Road?
Hadley Road was one of the roads, unaccepted ones that the city council reviewed, and it was the ones that the city council adopted terminating service on it. Because basically it was a road to the farmhouse. And only one property on it, and then it got split up. They were notified very early this year that we wouldn't be plowing this fall, or this winter time. And it just came back up. That sounded like the rental property didn't know that the property owner knew, Mr. Volpe, that we were stopping at this point. Because he's known for at least 8 months verbally before that. So.
It was my understanding, Wes, that there are actually two owners of property adjacent to the road.
One, but one doesn't have access to it. One only accesses onto Severance.
Right.
So the only
But could access onto this road.
doesn't have a driveway at that point. They'd have,
At this moment in
Right.
time.
Yep.
I just would ask that we continue until we can, at least through this winter, so that we can find out if we want that road to be maintained and improved for growth reasons.
that'd be fine, but the only,
How
Right.
many years have we been plowing that road?
I have no idea.
Bingo.
Right. But it only goes into one lot. So basically, Mr. Volpe would have to develop the lot for it to go into place.
I understand that, but I mean,
Yep.
we've maintained that road for as long as I can remember. And I just, before we just shut it down, I'd like to take a chance or take an opportunity to see if we can work with them and find a way to maintain the road in the hopes that Mr. Volpe's, I'm hesitant because he might be listening, he's not a spring chicken. Family may well want to develop the property, whatever.
Right.
And they're used to the city maintaining their road.
I'll just say it's the same recommendation that we did with Plantation and Colonial, so you'll need to
understand.
consider what you want to do.
I understand. I just would ask for one more year, or at least this year, until we can make a more definitive, or work with them. Mr. Volpe is not, I know you've notified him, but I'm not sure he understood how to react to that. So if we could just assure them that this year we'll maintain the road and get into some negotiations with them about next year.
What I'd like to do is, if we can schedule a follow-up discussion with the city manager on this matter.
Sure. Yep.
If that's okay.
Yep.
That's okay, Wes. But just
Thanks,
to,
Wes.
just to reiterate, you've posed a question to the city manager in regards to Cottonwood and the status on that.
Yep.
And the solar array.
Yes, and this.
And this, yes.
Thank you, sir.
No problem at all. Any other council comments right now?
Just one, Mayor.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was only a member, and I don't speak for my colleague, but Capital Reserve Committee finished their work. The meetings were very well run. Congratulations has to go out to the department heads who did their homework and presented to the committee their wants and needs. And I think we owe a debt to the citizens that were on the committee for their time. It's approximately about 2 months, so I would like the council to thank them for their work, and the documents now go on to the planning board. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Haynes.
Could I just add to that, Mr. Mayor, because I serve as well? One of the things that we discussed was a recommendation to the planning board and ultimately to the city council about starting a fund for big purchases. I mean, we do it, for instance, with fire trucks, but the highway department, the police department, other departments have sometimes major purchases that then become an issue because we find them all at once. And I think I speak for the capital improvements program folks, and certainly Mark can correct me. But I think we hope the council would give some thought, if it's legally possible, and I hadn't thought until just this moment, for the city to start a capital improvement fund for big purchases. And I think they're gonna put that in their written report to the planning board and ultimately to the city council.
Certainly, as we approach the next budget cycle, that might be something that we can
Yep.
have further discussions with the city manager about creating a reserve fund for
Yep.
capital purchases. I think it's a pretty good idea, quite frankly, then, obviously, instead of bonding an entire purchase or having to take on a significant expense like that, planning for it, I think makes a lot of sense. If there are no further council comments, do we have any committee reports? Any liaison reports? Seeing none, item number 19, this is citizens' request to comment on current agenda items. Now would be the appropriate time if there's something on the current agenda that you would like to speak to, particularly anything under the new business portion. Now would be the appropriate time. Three times a turn, Pat.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Patrick Wood. I know that I've had some communication with Councilor Lippman and some with Councilor Cheney some time ago about the welfare guidelines, and I know that there were some important changes to those, so I'm not sure if they're in a final form tonight or not, but I guess I would request that we, if possible, schedule another meeting of the committee to go over those, because I think there were some questions about some of the language that personally I had some concerns about, and I'm not sure where they are at this point, so that's my question.
Well, where it is under 21C this evening, it's scheduled for possible potential adoption of the revised welfare guidelines. As
Correct.
presented. So these would be adopted tonight.
That's what I'm asking, if perhaps that could be reconsidered and another subcommittee meeting be held so that we can talk about some particular issues in that.
Council
The
Lippman was working on that. Who else was on that committee?
I'm on that committee.
Mr. Cheney?
I would defer to Counselor Cheney
Well,
as to
I
whether that
think-
would be something.
The finance director produced the document, and we amended it, but maybe he could speak to Pat's concerns. You were present.
Sure, thank you, Counselor. Was present, and it was discussed at the last Finance Committee meeting. There were some changes. I looked at the more of, I would say, minor changes to the language. Adding language, for example, to increase an emphasis on preventing homelessness or impending homelessness, that kind of thing, that have been put into this draft that's in front of you tonight. But I think, other than those minor changes, the committee had reviewed the document and seemed pretty happy with it.
I did. Pat, if I might, Mr. Mayor? Pat, could you remind us the portions that you were concerned about?
Well, there were a couple of, one was on the shelters. And my concern with the way it was written is that someone applies for assistance, and it takes 5 days to get that assistance, but they're in a shelter. And if the application is approved, my request initially was to have that retroactive to the date of application so that the shelter doesn't have to pay the cost of that 3 to 5 days worth of review, or if it's a weekend, it could be 7 days. And I'm not sure that that's in the proposed guidelines. And then I had a couple of other questions on the actual procedures in the event of an appeal.
So hold on 1 second there, Pat. Can
sorry.
you say whether that is in the guidelines, Mr. Smith? Was that adopted by the committee?
We generally don't do interactive payments. To be honest, I don't know if we've had a situation where somebody is already in the shelter and then comes for us, because typically they wouldn't be in the shelter unless there was already some mechanism for the shelter to get paid. We have had, I remember one situation where a person was in the shelter for, I think, about 3 months. Somebody else had promised to pay. They didn't pay. The shelter came to us and said, "Can you pay us 3 months of back rent?" In that particular case, we promised to move forward, but not pay the back rent. So I'm sure that's that kind of situation that you're referring to.
No, that's not the situation.
Oh, I see.
No, I'm just talking about the, between the time of application and the approval, which is supposed to be 5 business days, if I understand the guidelines. And if somebody is in the shelter, that they've had an emergency situation, they're in the shelter's providing them that place to live for that period of time, and they're approved, let's say, on the 5th day. So there's 4 or 5 days worth of shelter that's been provided, that I would ask the city to make sure that the shelter gets that 4 or 5 days back, so that they're not the ones footing the bill for this. If the person qualifies for the assistance, I would like to see that retroactive, at least as far as the shelters are concerned, to the date of the application. Because the assumption is, if they applied and they're found to be qualified, that means they're qualified as the date that they applied.
Okay.
So I guess that's all I'm talking about, is that 4 or 5 days where the shelters, which are usually, on a shoestring as far as their budgets are concerned, between the city bearing that 4 or 5 days cost and the shelter, it seems to be more equitable that the city would bear that cost. That's all I'm talking about, Mr. Smith.
And I think in that scenario, we would definitely work with the shelter. We want to maintain good relationships with the shelters as they do with us. I will say that we have 5 days, but typically, we can get they get an answer within 1 to 2 days.
Right.
Unless it's an emergency, and then they get an answer same day.
Correct.
So we
But
do
if they
have
come
that.
in on a Friday night in the shelter and you've got those 2 days before you even get a chance to look at it, it's a,
If I can interject, Pat, 2 things I would interject. I think when you talk about organizations that are operating on a shoestring, the city isn't far behind. We're trying to keep a tight rope. That said, it seemed, my recollection is, our discussion was, you had, my word, wiggle room built into that. So in situations like what he's talking about, you could work with the shelter. In other words, it doesn't say, the rules do not say we cannot pay.
That is correct, and we do work with the shelter.
Right.
With all the shelters. Like I say, they
We
are
need
our,
them.
they're our partners in this.
Yeah, we need them desperately.
And, the last thing we want is to,
Pat, I wanna,
Hold on, Bruce.
I'm sorry.
I mean, we're not- I think one of the questions I have here, Patrick, and I'm glad maybe you can shed a little light on this, is the city has an obligation, right? If someone comes in and they qualify, there's a certain level of obligation the city has for shelter, is that correct?
that's correct. And if they come in
So,
in such an emergency situation, we close at 4:30. If they come in at 4:29 on a Friday, they will get service.
sure.
We don't send people away.
So the difference here, Counselor Cheney, is that it's the city's obligation to expend that money on behalf of that person who qualifies. Hold on, it's just, you're right, we are very cautious with,
Yep.
with our dollars in the city. But, the shelters, though it's their mission, they don't necessarily have to let every single person in that comes to their door. We do, to that extent. So there is a little difference here. It's nuanced, but I'm agree with Mr. Smith, too, that the shelters are partners, and you don't want to burn that bridge, because then you don't have a resource when you're under the obligation to find a place for somebody. So we're allowing Mr. Smith and his department, through this, it seems to me, through this language, to have the discretion, which, I trust Mr. Smith and his team to do this properly. But really, this is a document that lives on probably beyond the tenure. So certainly, I think if people come in and they qualify, they're entitled to it. They should have the ability to pay for the shelter that retroactive to day one. I just want the discretion there.
and I was trying to, please believe, Mr. Mayor, I'm not suggesting that I don't want to help these folks by any stretch of the imagination. I was trying to suggest that the discretion was there. My recollection was we actually talked about you're having discretion that it wasn't chiseled in stone, and I don't recall anything about we are unable to pay retroactively. I just don't remember that.
Well, there is some language in that, particularly in relation to rents and security deposits and such. And the intent is not to deny somebody service because they came in on Friday, we're not gonna make a decision on Monday. The decision is to use the example I used earlier, the person had been, staying at a shelter for weeks. And the relative had promised to pay, now the relative can't pay. So we're talking about retroactively in a matter of weeks, not a matter of a couple days, in that case.
So, is there anything that prevents us from adopting these guidelines now? But if, Patrick, if you still have concerns and want to have this discussion further,
I can present.
listening to the discussion, having the discussion going forward to see if there's an opportunity to change this if we're so moved to do so.
Right,
I'm sure Henry would more than that be.
more than
I
happy
think
to
so
do
too.
that.
I agree.
Thank you.
Thanks for raising the issue.
You bet, absolutely, thank you.
Still on 19, any other comments on current agenda items? Seeing none, I'll move right along to city manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Included in your packet tonight is financial and operational trends for November. You can see the building construction permits, not a huge jump from last month to this month, but we still are just under last year, but well ahead of the last 2 years ago, so building construction's still going well. Fire numbers are about standard for right now. up a little bit of increase from last year. Public assistance data, you'll see that the payouts that we've been so far this year are not real high. But I will note that the emergency rental assistance program does sunset at the end of December. So we don't know, if that does go away, we don't know what that's gonna do to our welfare numbers. So we haven't paid out a lot right now, so if that happens, you know, they'll be ready to take care of that. Police numbers are there, again, all pretty standard, no big jumps in any one direction. Property tax collection, we're almost 98% collected from our July tax bills. I will say that the DRA has all of our information, all the schools' information, and we found out today that we should be hearing within the week of our tax rate, and we'll be able to get our tax bills out within the month. Everything is leaning towards that being on track, which is good. Motor vehicle registration and boat registration, motor vehicle registration is up a little bit, so that was really well there. Page 3, the overtime is nothing really stand out. It's pretty standard from what we've been seeing year to year. Parks and Rec use is there, no real changes there. Impact fees and all the other funds are again, relatively standard, no big changes in any one direction. Boat tax down a little bit. General revenues and expenditures are all in line with where they should be. And the ambulance billing is actually up a little bit right now for the year to date. I will get follow-up with Councilor Cheney with his list for me. I'll get one off the docket though and say the solar fields are about a year out from construction. That's where we're standing right now, as of what we know right now. If anything changes, we'll get back to you on that one, and I'll get answers to you on the other ones and follow up.
Thank you.
Yep.
A question, going forward, Kirk, thank you. The drawdown on the TIF funding, particularly in regards to downtown, it's been riding around that level of $1 million for a while now, but we know that there's gonna be a drawdown on that with, particularly in regards to expenses with the Colonial, which we're gonna draw down on that. I just wonder, maybe the next meeting, can you give us some sense of how that's going to be drawn down and give us some projections, what it looks like maybe 6 months and a year from now, as to what the balance would be?
Will do. We'll take care of that.
Any questions for the city manager on financial and operational trends? I guess one of the only questions I have is on the fire department EMS billing report. We're nearing towards the time in the year, fiscal year, when Mr. Smith, that we've probably received almost as much as we're going to receive. Some money will start to trickle in now as we close out the last fiscal year, which ended on June 30th. Is that right?
That is correct.
That number of $834,000 is fairly consistent with the previous couple of years. Is that true too? In that same ballpark?
I would want to check with the historical information before answering that, but my off-the-cuff impression, answer is yes.
Okay, that's great, thank you. And the one thing I'd be particularly interested in is just some sort of trend analysis as to whether the amount of money we're receiving for dollar billed is staying consistent, or is it going up or going down?
Yeah, we can do a trend analysis on that. I think what we're looking at on last year's to what we're expecting, these numbers seem to be making sense over the last 2 to 3 years, but we'll pull the direct numbers and get you exacts. But you know, this upper 800,000, 900,000 ballpark number for the payments, once everything sort of settles out, has been around where we are.
I just want to make sure our costs are relatively consistent year over year, and my hunch is that it's not because of various inflationary pressures on this. So though that dollar amount, that net dollar we're receiving is consistent, I'm wondering where our expenses are going in relation to that, so that delta could be growing. And I also want to just have some idea of reimbursement rates. Are these reimbursement rates dropping as a percentage of dollar billed, or remaining essentially the same?
Yeah,
Just
well,
so
we
can
can pull an
project.
analysis for the last, since 18, so we can pull that up.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, any other questions of the city manager, Mr. Smith? Okay, terrific. We're moving on to item number 21A, which is Resolution 2022-15 relating to a supplemental appropriation to accommodate acceptance of an exceptional needs grant by the Laconia School District. Welcome.
Diane Clary, Business Administrator. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Diane. Thanks for introducing yourself, and I will turn it over to the SAU staff right now and maybe walk us through this, if you would.
Okay, so we're requesting approval for supplemental appropriation in the amount of $367,796. These funds were made available from the passing of Senate Bill 420 and its amendments to alleviate the cost for an adequate education for children in lower tax rate municipalities, which we qualify. The amount is calculated taking into account free and reduced lunch eligible students in the school district and the equalized evaluation calculation that brings the monies around. And we're asking, Assistant Superintendent Hines is going to talk more about exactly what we plan to use the monies for, but we're asking for approval so that we can continue to provide adequate education for our children.
Terrific, thank you.
Good evening. Amy Hines, the Assistant Superintendent for the school district. We do want to have $50,000 set aside to purchase a van that would be used for our food service department that would bring food to the various schools. We also would like to set aside $80,000 to go towards technology. The remaining $137,000, a third of that, we would like to have go towards professional development, to have continuing ongoing PD towards literacy and math. We would also like to continue the work of aligning our curriculum with the district's vision of read, write, and discuss across the content areas, and to improve instructional strategies to affect student achievement. The remaining two-thirds, we would like to have focus on curriculum. The majority of that would be on curriculum resources and materials for literacy, math, science, and social studies. We would also like to have some intervention tools to help support students in their learning in literacy and math. And we'd also like time for staff to infuse read, write, and discuss and the portrait of graduate skills into the curriculum.
Thank you, Ms. Hines. Appreciate it. Superintendent Tucker, welcome.
Good evening, good to see you all. So we have this great opportunity to use some resources in the language of the law to improve the educational achievement and growth of students. And obviously that happens through many different means. The van, we see being a multi-purpose van, so our van that we use to transport food, we also see an opportunity to transport students. And we're excited for the opportunity to bring this forward to you tonight. Do you have any questions for us?
Thank you, Superintendent. In anticipation maybe of some questions from perhaps constituents of the counselors here, is it possible at some point to just get a detailed breakdown so we'd have it just for our own personal reference in case constituents were to contact my office or office of the counselors here, so we can respond to specific requests for information as to how the money was spent?
Sure. 4 buckets: technology, the van, professional development, and instructional supplies. We can give you some more details on that. Happy to do that and answer any questions later on if you think of any.
We are also required by New Hampshire Ed to provide an accountability plan for them for where the funds are going. So
Good.
that'll be a detailed explanation of that.
Terrific. Before we move on to motions here, do any counselors have any questions for anyone from the SAU?
If I might, is this a one-year program?
2 years.
2 years?
2 years. We don't know what our amount will be next year. The early estimates are around $290 additional dollars.
Okay.
$290,000.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So this is, just to briefly go over this, these funds are unanticipated revenue, and per RSA 31:95 dash small b and City Code Section 5:06, a public hearing was required to accept and expend these funds. So the fiscal impact on the city, the approval of this request will increase appropriations and offsetting revenues by $376,796. There is no local match requirement. So as we know, Superintendent Tucker recommends that the council approve the supplemental appropriation as presented this evening. So we've got a series of 3 motions here. The first one being a move to waive a reading of this resolution and to read by title only. So made by Counselor Haynes, seconded by Counselor Felch. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hands. 4 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Second motion is to move a first reading of Resolution 2022-15 relative to making a supplemental appropriation for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022 and terminating June 30th, 2023. So made by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 4 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. And finally, looking for a motion to move to schedule a public hearing on November 28th, 2022 during the regular city council meeting to gather public input prior to adoption. So made by Counselor Susie, seconded by Counselor Cheney. Any further discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 4 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Thank you. Item number 21B under Parks and Recreation, which is Parks and Recreation Facility User Fees Update. Amy Lovisek is here. Would you like to give us an update?
Absolutely.
Welcome. Nice to have you.
Thank you for having me. So I believe you see in your packet what my commission and my department has put together. Basically, the changes that you're seeing are in yellow. And what they are, we have, I'm hoping you also have what we currently are using for our user fees, which is on the back side of our facility use request. So what we did was we tried to kind of clean it up a little bit and then add to it. We cleaned it and then made it more complicated. So what we did was we put the City of Laconia and school-sanctioned events in one line, and again, there's no fees for anything like that. We changed the nonprofit charity fundraising. There is a $100 fee for that, whether you're a resident or a non-resident. This is your walkathons, anything that actually raises money on city property, giving back to the city. Then we added the nonprofit events with the low impact, and the low impact meaning they're doing a baptism at Rotary Park or something that's not going to create any real issues with the facility itself. No bathroom use, no power use, not a lot of wear and tear on the facility itself, and that would be no fee at all. Special events, this was our biggest issue because there's just so many different types in the city. A regular special event for a resident, again, no fee, because we don't want to charge our taxpayers, which makes perfect sense. A special event for non-residents is $150 for a half day, less than 4 hours, and if it's over 4 hours, it's $300 a day. Then we go up to large special events, and this is where it gets kind of tricky. But we tried to make it easier with the under 1,000 people and over 1,000 people. Nonprofit and for-profit. So it's a bigger, more of an impact on our facilities type of an event. And you can see the fees there, but there are fees even if you're a resident. If you're putting a lot of impact on our facilities, you should have to help us maintain the facility. So at the bottom, you can see the breakdown of what we changed. Another thing that we added was a 50% deposit. When we were speaking, my commissioner chair, Mitch Hamill, and I met with former city manager Scott Myers. And his concern was whether or not people were maintaining the facilities the proper way. And a lot of times it is, and they are treated respectfully and all well. There is the occasion that it is not. And so what he suggested to us was putting a 50% deposit, which is of course fully refundable after the facility has been inspected. So if your event cost you $200, we're gonna add another $100 onto that and give you back the $100 if you've cleaned up after yourselves. The city should not have to clean up after an event that you've asked us to provide you with the space. Let's see. We did add the picnics. We just kind of broke the picnics down a little bit more. We did have picnics already, but we just separated them out with profit and nonprofit. And that's basically it. I just wanted you all aware of where the commission was going. Mayor, I know that you had asked me at our budget presentation if we had changed any of these, and we hadn't. So this is our response to that.
You're putting this on my shoulders.
We're happy to do it, mind you, but we heard you and we are responding.
Now on the shoulders of the mayor. Well,
We heard you,
I'm
we
looking for
responded.
a motion to table this. Oh, you were doing so well, Amy. I can't let this pass.
The rest of us are enjoying it.
Yeah.
I bet you are, yeah.
I think the
Well, you
votes are
guys-
here to pass
oh,
this.
my God. Oh.
Did anyone have any questions for it, on it?
Mr. Mayor,
I am opposed.
4 to 1.
Where's the camera? No, there's a camera here. I'm opposed. No, go right ahead, Counselor Susie.
When we have requests that come in, like we had this evening for Endicott Rock or anything else like that, and to cancel all the fees, does that include this?
I don't know the answer to that. So I would have it had asked for all special event fees in the motion.
Right.
I'm not the special event fee.
Right.
I think they're outside of this.
Yeah, there's those special events
All
fees.
those
That's
fees
what I
are
was
waived.
asking. Okay.
All those fees are waived.
No,
That wouldn't
that's-
make any sense to charge those fees. I mean, essentially, it's coming back to us anyways.
Right, okay, that's the reason why I was asking, just clarification. Thank you, and I think that your comments are well focused.
Thank you. I have one on my side. Yes.
Oh, there is.
Oh, good.
Mayor votes to increase all taxes and fees citywide.
And the 4 of us are gonna vote against it.
My goodness, I'm glad. All right, any other questions of the Park and Recs Director? Counselor
I'd just
Felch.
like to say that I go to most of the Parks and Rec meetings, and the committee and everybody have spent a lot of time and thought into these fees, so
It looks that way in
Yeah.
in this.
they really have.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Sort of.
Okay.
Is the motion coming, or is it, or did you table it?
I'm gonna put it out there for you all to decide. If you all like, you might make a motion to waive a reading of this ordinance in its entirety and to read by title only. Would you like that, Counselor Cheney?
I
So
would.
made, seconded by Counselor Felch. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands.
Good.
4 votes in the affirmative,
I don't
that
see that
motion
on here.
passes.
I don't have that on my motions
Oops.
for this,
You're on the wrong
for
one.
this.
Nope, sorry, cocked up. Strike that. Well, we don't have to read it in its entirety, anyway. So, next motion would, if one of you would like to make a motion to approve the updated facility user fee schedule as presented. Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Susie. Is there any further discussion?
I think we should support our mayor in his efforts to increase these fees.
And you,
Oh, God, I love
I
it
do
every
not
day.
support this. But if you all do, there is a motion on the table, and if you would like to vote to raise all fees here in the city in regards to Parks and Recreation, now would be the appropriate time. So all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 4 votes in the affirmative. That unfortunate motion passes. I hope you're all happy.
That's the headline.
Liberals, tax and spend, liberals. I can't stand it.
oh, boy, you know.
All right, let's move along, let's move along.
Oh, boy.
Marcy.
That was a good comeback.
Some meetings are better than others.
Some of our friendly reps here or there, and remember who the lobbyist is.
I don't have 21C in front of me. I may have just thrown that one out. You have 21C?
21C is the.
The welfare guidelines.
the welfare.
Guidelines, yeah. Okay,
It's the
got it, thank you.
welfare.
Thank you. Under item 21C, approval of revised city welfare guidelines. RSA 165:1, Roman 2 requires that each New Hampshire municipality adopt written guidelines relative to the provision of general assistance. City Council last adopted welfare guidelines on February 25th, 2020. Over the last several months, staff has reviewed these guidelines and updated them as needed to ensure efficient operation. These guidelines were reviewed by the Finance Committee on October 24th, 2022. This revision incorporates feedback received from committee members during that review. Major revisions on this document include, and definitions have been updated. This report has been prepared by Glenn Smith, our welfare director, and it's his recommendation that the city council adopt the revised welfare guidelines as presented. Right now, I'd be looking for a motion to move to adopt the revised welfare guidelines as presented.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, I'd like to make a motion to table this to our next meeting to give Mr. Wood and the finance director time to clarify the language, if I may.
The motion to table is non-debatable. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. 4 votes in the affirmative, that motion is tabled.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
21D, first reading of ordinance 2022-195-10 to amend City Code, Chapter 195, Special Events and Outdoor Assembly, Section 195-10, Fee Schedule, and to schedule a public hearing for November 28th, 2022. An increase in the fee schedule for special events and outdoor assembly is proposed and shown in the attached ordinance. If approved, the proposed changes would bring our fees more in line with those events similar to Laconia Motorcycle Week occurring across the country. This report was filed by City Manager Kirk Biotti. Kirk, City Manager, would you please just give us just a brief overview?
Sure, so as
why
we.
the updates?
Yeah, so as we said, these fees, they do affect more than just Motorcycle Week, but that is the largest percentage by far of where these come from. Motorcycle Week is historically costing us more and more to run each year, and is starting to cut into the city's actual funding of the event. It's now getting to the point where it's not going to be funding itself. It's gonna be, and the city's gonna end up funding a lot of it. So we tried to figure out a way that we could, where we could go into to make some changes. One of the areas where we looked at was this ordinance that affects property owners and what they pay to have vendors on their sites. The last time this was adjusted was 2001. We did try to put ourselves in line, like it said, with some other ones. They were difficult to find. Daytona was very easy to compare to. It still keeps us under what they do. We tried reaching out with Americade and Sturgis just to see where that stood, and we were having, we weren't able to get exactly pinpointed as much as we would like. But we were able to do this and figure out that, this would double those fees, because as you see, we doubled those amounts of money, and would certainly go a long ways in helping the city not have to fund much of the increase that we see every year.
Thank you, Kirk. That being said, right now I'd be looking for a series of 3 motions. First is to move a reading of this ordinance in its entirety to read by title only. So made by Counselor Susie, seconded by Counselor Cheney. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. It's 4 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Second, we're looking for a motion to move a first reading of ordinance 2022-195-10. So made by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. It's 4 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Finally, I'm looking for a motion to move to schedule a public hearing on November 28, 2022, during the regular city council meeting to gather input prior to any action being taken. So made by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Susie. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. 4 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. (21E), use of unassigned ARPA funds for the purchase of Laconia Fire Department Protective 23 allocation of $867,929.53 in ARPA funding. On August 20, $11.20 for a total of $16.44.80. Full set PPE includes coat, hat, pants, helmet, hood, and gloves. City managers recommended the use of ARPA funds for this purchase as proposed. Right now, I'll be looking for a motion to approve the use of unassigned ARPA funds for the purchase of Laconia Fire Department protective clothing as proposed. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. 4 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Moving on to item number 21F, which is the use of impact fees to fund the purchase of portable radios for 4 additional Laconia Fire Department personnel as per the fiscal year 23 approved budget. Laconia Fire Department plans on adding 4 new personnel in January. Due to the lack of unassigned portable radios at the fire department, it is necessary to purchase new radios for these first responders. Funds are available within the department's impact fee allocations to offset this acquisition. The department is requesting use of these funds. 4 portable radios at a cost of $2,377.54 per unit for a grand total of $9,510.16. Approval of this request will reduce the amount to be paid from the general fund by $9,510.16. It will reduce the amount of impact fee funds available to the fire department by a like amount, leaving a balance of $8,138.85. Right now, City Manager Kirk Biotti is recommend allocating fire department impact fees as proposed previously. I move to approve the, right now looking for a motion to approve the use of impact fees to fund the parking lot this year for the location of some food trucks in connection with the event. Celebrate Laconia, it's all your opportunities.
Sorry.
But that's all right. Come on.
So I just want to thank Nancy for helping us, I'm not, helping us get this temporary traffic order done in time. One thing that I just wanted to plug with the group and everyone is that this is a full event, including the parade, the Lights Festival, including celebrate, asking for people to sponsor and come enjoy the day and the parade. And we hope to really get this thing going and expanding further into Weirs Beach, Lakeport, and having it become a really across the city event at some point or another. So.
Would you be so kind as to introduce yourself to the clerk?
Yes, I'm sorry about that. I'm Daryl Dawson. I own Keller House in the Weirs, and I'm also a board member on Celebrate Laconia.
Daryl, thanks for the work you've been doing with the Christmas trees downtown over the past couple of years, at least now, right? I mean, it looks absolutely fantastic.
It's year 3. We started with 50. We're out to 150 this year. We still have a lot to sell. The town that I got this from, same size as as Laconia, won the world record for the most lit trees, 600 and something trees. They unfortunately only had it for a week because another town beat it. We're not going for that, but they usually sell about 450 trees in their city. And their town, if you look at their town, almost looks like Laconia. Has a river going through it, looks just like their parks and everything like that. And we hope to have something that really builds upon itself like that for the whole city to enjoy.
Daryl, thanks for all your efforts, and I'm glad you spoke up.
Great. Sorry, I know it's just
Quite all right.
traffic order, but I just wanted everybody to say something about that. So.
It's all good. Have we made a motion to make?
Nope.
No, we haven't.
We
So
don't
right,
have to make a motion.
we haven't made a motion? No, I don't think so.
Yep.
Oh, we do?
We did.
Oh, Okay. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of this motion, please indicate by raising your hands. 4 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. There you go. That was good. Easy, easy. All right, and finally, under this, item number 21, agenda item. This is 21H, a request from the United States Postal Service to lease parking spaces in the city parking lot behind St. Joseph's Church. Want to lead us through this just a little bit?
Sure, love to. So I was contacted by the U.S. Post Office out of D.C., who have the one behind St. Joseph's Church. So they sent me some information requesting that at least it goes in front of you guys to make the decision on if it's something we want to entertain. So that's really where this stands. If there's consensus from you to move this forward, you guys would bring it to a public hearing, and I'd be able to bring back information on financials and stuff like that. We have not worked anything out. I did talk to them about it a little bit, but nothing solid either direction from either side on the financials.
This would be parking for the postage trucks.
My understanding from them is that this is for the postage trucks, not customers.
Counselor Susie.
I think that's something that we originally had the original conversation with City Manager Myers at the time. That was one of the things we wanted to look at, is to move some of the parking from this big lot to behind the church. I think it's a great thing.
So this parking they're talking about is moving their trucks from their
Right.
own side lot, which I don't think is part of the municipal lot. They don't
No,
use
but
it.
they're also putting some trucks, well, all over, that's the only, I
Okay.
mean, I still think it's a good idea.
Okay, good. All right. Yes, absolutely.
Kurt, did they indicate where? Did they have any spots?
No, that would be up to us.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think going forward too, might want to refresh our recollection as to what spaces are, did we commit to certain spaces already with the church? Did we leave something behind there or not? I don't think we
I would have to
No,
look.
we, not that I'm aware of.
We did, Wes is saying we did.
What was that we did? Yeah, there are a couple spaces there, so
Well, there's
just
only
make sure that we don't.
For the residents in the house, right, not for the church.
No, in the agreement, there is a guarantee for so many parking spaces for the church. Whether
Yeah, we
they
did.
use it or not, it's a different
the
story.
church. But just before we go into go too far along, just make sure you have
Yep,
that.
we can pull that up as well.
Yeah.
Well, was there any question about them having space on the weekends, on Sundays, in that original? Was there, Wes, do you recall, was there anything about
I
the
couldn't
church?
remember if it was for weekends or not. I just remember there were spaces that were set aside.
I remember.
Yeah, I remember that too, and it was very few spaces.
There were certain spaces set aside. Oh.
So I guess there's no motion here. I'd just be looking for consensus to say, for the city manager to continue
That's fine.
discussions on this and then bring his information back to us.
Yep, we can.
We seem to have consensus, so.
Yep.
All right, John.
I would say I'm against leasing spaces.
Are you open to him having the discussions at all?
I can listen.
Seems like it's unanimous at this point.
Okay. I can, I can continue to talk to them and bring back some more solid information.
Thank you. Moving on to item number, agenda item 22 under unfinished business. Item 22A, request from Weirs Beach Pedal Boats to operate a pedal boat business using the city docks and space on the boardwalk in Weirs Beach. Counselor Cheney, this, I believe, is in your ward, isn't it?
It is.
So I'd look to you to sort of lead this discussion and get your thoughts before we move to any sort of motion right now.
Thank you. As I think the council is aware, the Weirs Action Committee expressed they voted to oppose this. Subsequently, they were all sent packages, and I've spoken to one or two who said, well, maybe they were a little hasty about opposing it, but I can't tell you that the organization has changed their mind. All of that said, I think there is a possibility that this could be a good addition to the Weirs. I would, however, like the manager to put in some written requirements that they have a person out there when the boats are coming, when the Mount Washington or the Sophie C is, Sophie C, is it? Yeah, when they're coming into dock, I'd like their written assurance they'll have somebody out there. I don't want their boat ready to go out. I'd like it to be out there. Under those circumstances, I'd certainly move that we approve this, subject to their agreement of safety issues.
So if I hear you correctly, Counselor Cheney, thank you for your input on this and your leadership on it. You would like to see reduced to writing a safety plan that is satisfactory to the Mount Washington, Mount Washington owns Sophie C as well, correct?
Correct.
And signed by both parties. That
Yes.
They can.
Yep.
Okay. That would be part of the motion. Go right ahead, Counselor Felch.
I'm pretty much all for this, but before I vote on it, I'd like to see what the lease is gonna look like, what the fees are gonna be, what the terms are gonna be.
I don't think this is a lease request, is it? Am I
Well,
missing
there is gonna
something?
be a lease, correct? I'd like to see what the details are gonna be.
I don't think they're paying anything to use it.
We did have it listed in there as a leasing of dock space. So, yeah.
It's the back side of the dock, which is unused right now, correct?
Correct.
And it's just like the Mount Washington. We have a lease with the Mount Washington. And when we had the dive there, we had a lease with them. So I'd like to see the details, even if it's $1. I just want to see what the details are.
Fair enough.
Okay. No, we're looking for some sort of written agreement to use a lease agreement to use the dock. At,
So what I've done is, and I didn't bring it forward yet, I've worked up a draft for what I've used on times that we've leased dock space in the past and sort of doctored it to fit what they're gonna be doing. I did work with them, got some hour information and liability insurance information, all that kind of stuff. I didn't have any information on numbers, just because that's something we haven't discussed. But other than that, they've been really open to working with the lease agreement. So if this was something that you wanted to do, we could certainly, if you directed me to work up the lease with legal and everything, I could certainly make that happen if there's anything in there you wanted specifically.
Perhaps we could table this to another meeting to give time for the lease and the other paperwork to be done.
Motion.
I know time is of the essence right now for these folks to order these pedal boats. I want to get it right. I don't want to put them in a bind where they can't get the order in and operate this year, but I'd rather, guess, measure twice, cut once.
I think we can do it at the next meeting. I
Yeah.
would hope that would be sufficient time for them. I know Kirk won't drag this out and make
Right.
it.
And in that lease, we can have the details for the
Right.
Mount Washington and
Right.
that as well.
And I think we should tell them, we're in, I don't want to speak for anybody else, I'm certainly supportive,
I agree.
subject to
Mhm.
getting the lease before the rest of the council and the agreement on how safety is going to be.
So at our next meeting, we hope to have in front of us, in order to vote on this and approve it, one is a memorandum of understanding in regards to the safety protocols that they're going to
Yep.
follow, and that's going to be signed by both parties.
Yep.
Which would be Mount Washington and Charles and Diane Carey. And second of all, the details of the lease agreement between the city leasing the dock space and the Careys, whatever those terms are agreed to.
Yep.
But I would suggest that's poised to be approved if
Yeah.
those
Oh,
two
yeah. Yep.
conditions are met on the 28th, right?
Mhm.
Okay. All right.
So I'll make
So,
that motion to
motion to-
table till the next meeting.
Non-debatable, all those in favor? 4 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. This is tabled. Carrie's, your point, your contact, point of contact would be the city manager to work through this so we can move it as expeditiously as possible and make sure the council is happy, okay? Thank you. Item number 22B. Resolution 2022-14, second reading, approval of bonding for the purpose of purchasing solid waste and recycling containers. Kirk or Mr. Smith, if you'd like to lead us through this, just briefly, that would be terrific.
Yeah, I can, we had originally in the budget from last year, or for this year's budget, you had approved $700,000 for a bond for the tote system for the new solid waste and recycling canisters. The cost of everything has gone up, the cost of these have gone up, and the new number is $850,000. So we need to get this resolution passed so we can get the bond for $850,000 as opposed to $700,000. We'll move this forward to the Finance Committee for the details, so they can work out all the details and we can get this submitted.
Question, Mr. Mayor. This is for Mr. Smith. I thought there was a discussion about looking at this bond to be commingled or put together along with a large state bond at a lower rate.
That's right, that'll be done through the New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank.
Right.
And that is one of the options that's on the table for this. We also have quotes from individual financial institutions, and all that can be brought before the Finance Committee.
Will it be lower than the 4.5, you believe?
I left my crystal ball in the other room.
Okay.
With the bond bank is that they won't actually be putting out that issue until January. And in today's market, a lot can happen between now and January.
Agree. I'm just looking at this at the rate increase of a little over 20%. I think it's, pretty high. We could save a few dollars on the rate increases where I was going. Thank you.
So be looking for a series of three motions here. One would be a motion to move to waive a reading of this resolution in its entirety and to read by title only. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Felch. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. 4 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Second, we're looking for a motion to move to approve a second reading of Resolution 2022-14, a resolution relative to authorizing the city manager to take any actions necessary to issue bonds for the purpose of purchasing solid waste and recycling containers. So made by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. That's 4 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. And finally, we're looking for a motion to move to approve Resolution 2022-14 as presented and authorize city manager to sign all related documents. So made by Counselor Susie, seconded by Counselor Felch. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. That's 4 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. You voted in favor of that, Counselor Cheney?
I did, I'm sorry.
Okay, just didn't see your hand.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just, yep, for announcement purposes, if you could, we need to have a Finance Committee for the meeting for this. The committee is willing to meet on November 28th at 1800 prior to our next scheduled meeting. So if that's okay with you, we'll move that and get that scheduled.
What's the date again?
November 28th, 1800, 6 p.m. Sorry. Sorry, gut.
I know when it is.
So scheduled?
That was
All
old.
right. That concludes our agenda for this evening. I'd like to adjourn the meeting at 8:38 p.m.
No?
Yeah.